धाम की
जय।
श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड यमुना गंगा तुलसी भक्ति देवी की
जय।
जय श्री श्री राधा गोविंद गोपीनाथ मदन मोहन जीव की जय। श्री गिरिराज गोवर्धन महाराज की जय। श्री श्री रूपानुगा गुरु वर्ग की जय। नित्य लीला प्रविष्टों विष्णु पादस्तुतर सत श्री शिलैसी भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी महाराज श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। नित्य लीला प्रविष्टों विष्णुपाद स्तुतर सत श्री शिल भक्ति वेदांत नारायण गोस्वामी महाराज की जय। नित्य लीला प्रविष्टों विष्णुपाद स्तुतर सत श्री शिल भक्ति रक्षक श्रीधर गोस्वामी महाराज की जय। नित्य लीला प्रविष्टों विष्णुपाद स्तुतर सत श्री शिल भक्ति प्रज्ञान केशव गोस्वामी महाराज की जय। नित्य लीला प्रविष्टों विष्णुपाद स्तुतर सत श्री शिल भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती ठाकुर शिल प्रभुपाद की जय। महाभागवत शिल गौर किशोर दास गोस्वामी महाराज की जय। श्री शिल सच्चिदानंद भक्ति विनोद ठाकुर की जय। वैष्णव सार्वभौम शिल जगन्नाथ दास बाबू जी महाराज की जय। जय श्री रूपानुगा गुरु वर्ग की जय। श्री गौरी वेदांताचार्य बलदेव विभूषण प्रभु की जय। श्री विश्वनाथ चक्रवर्ती ठाकुर की जय। श्री नरोत्तम श्रीनिवास श्यामानंद प्रभु त्रय की जय। श्री कृष्णदास कविराज गोस्वामी प्रभु की जय। श्री रूप सनातन भक्त रघुनाथ श्री जीव गोपाल भक्त दास रघुनाथ सर गोस्वामी प्रभु की जय। श्री स्वरूप दामोदर रॉय रमानंद आदि गौर पार्षद वृंद की जय। नामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से गो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। समागत गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। जय गौर प्रेमानंदी हरि हरि बोल। ओम ज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। मुखं करोति वाचालं भङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणम्। वञ्चाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो महावदन्नाय कृष्ण प्रेम प्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्य नाम्ने गौरचिषे। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वृंदाय तुलसी देव्याय प्रियाय केशवस्य च कृष्ण भक्ति प्रदेवी सचरचाय नमो नमः। भक्त्या विहीन अपराध लक्ष्य क्षिप्तश्च कामादि तरंगमध्ये कृपामयि त्वं शरणं प्रपन्ना वृंदे नमस्ते चरणारविन्दम्। पंचतत्त्वात्मकं कृष्णं भक्तरूपस्वरूपकं भक्तावतारं भक्ताख्यं नमामि भक्तशक्तिकं श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे।
King Can you speak something about Ramananda Roy? It was his appearance day yesterday.
Oh, his disappearance day
Or
yesterday.
disappearance.
Acha. Yes. We should tell something on Sri Ramananda Roy. I'm offering my unlimited Dandavat Pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my beloved Gurudev, Nitya Lila Pravishta. Om Vishnupad Ashtotara Sata Shri Shila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada. And I'm offering my Dandavat Pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my beloved Sikh Shri Gurudevs. Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Ashtotara Sata Shri Shila Bhakti Rakshak Shridhar Goswami Maharaj. And Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Ashtotara Sata Shri Shila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. My Dandavat Pranams to the lotus feet of all my Sri Rupanuga Guru Varga. And my Dandavat Pranams to all the Vaishnavas, Vaishnavis in this auspicious assembly. So as requested, because yesterday being the disappearance day of most intimate associate of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is none other than Sri Ramananda Roy, we can speak some words about him, and then we can enter into our topic of discussion in Sri Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu Bindu. Continuing our discussion. What is Vaidhi Bhakti and what is Raganuga Bhakti? What is the differences and how to enter into both of these types of bhakti? Many, many topics about this in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu of Rupa Goswami. So I offer my unlimited Dandavat Pranams at the lotus feet of Sri Sri Ramananda Rai, who is none other than Sri Vishaka Devi from the eternal transcendental world of Goloka Braja Vrindavan, who is the very embodiment of Srimati Jamuna Devi, the divine river that flows throughout Sri Braj Dham. That river is her manifestation. Just as in this world, we also have demigoddesses and various demigods who are personalities, but also they are connected with various forces of nature, various planets. So in Goloka Braj, Sri Vishaka Devi is one of the Kaya Vyuha, the very bodily expansion of Srimati Radha Thakurani, who is the Swarup Shakti potency of Sri Krishna. Srimati Radharani is actually Krishna. She is actually the Supreme Absolute Truth. Because she is his full Shakti, Purna Shakti. So, Sri Krishna is called Purna Shakti Man. He is the complete possessor of all energy. Everything that exists is his energy. And that energy is one, Swarup Shakti, his own self. This is the Gaudiya Vaishnava conception coming from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that the Supreme Absolute Truth, Param Tattva, is none other than Hari. In the Dasmul Tattva, 10 essential principles of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, there, the first three are pertaining to Sri Bhagavan Sri Krishna. So it says there, Amnaya Praha Tattvam Harim Iha Paramam Sarvashaktim Rasabdhim. So, by the transcendental authority of Vedic Shastra, which is called Amnaya, that which has been accepted by the great Guru Parampara. Not all Vedas, because some Vedas are pertaining to the modes of nature, and they are given for persons in various lower conditions of existence, to help them gradually become elevated. But Amnaya is the evidence which is accepted by all the great acharyas and the mahajans. That is called Amnaya. So Amnaya Praha, what has Amnaya told? That Amnaya Praha Tattvam Harim Iha Paramam. Tattvam Paramam. Who is the Paratattva, the supreme truth? It is Hari. That is the conclusion. Hari. Only one. One supreme personality, Hari. And Sarva Shaktim, that one supreme personality, is the possessor of all Shakti, all potency. Sarva Shakti. So actually, that Shakti is his very self. It is his emanation, it belongs to him. It is subordinate to him. And he, along with his Shakti, comprise the Paratattva, the absolute truth. So, Sarva Shaktim Rasabdhim. And to know that absolute truth fully, then one has to comprehend his supreme nature of rasa. Rasabdim means he is an ocean of rasa. He is an endless ocean of rasa. So that those various tattvas, das mul tattva, they explain everything about the Supreme Absolute Truth in a synopsized way. And then that must be expanded. So if one wants to understand that topic, then one has to read Sri Jaiva Dharma of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, wherein he has composed one shloka for each one of the 10 das mula, the root shlokas, the root truths, mul tattva. And then he has expanded in one chapter for each one of these. So Sri Krishna, Bhagavan, and Sri Krishna's Shakti potency, they are identical. There is no difference between them. They are non-different. But yet, from a certain angle of vision, they are also different. And we have the mundane example of the material energy within this world, the sun planet. Because the sun planet has its energy also. And that energy is emanation of the sun and is also non-different. Because the sun is full of heat and light, the sun globe itself. And the emanation is also heat and light, so qualitatively same. In that way, the Shakti, the power, the energy of Bhagavan is also one with him, non-different than him. But in order for rasa to be tasted, therefore there is also differentiation, you see. There must be some difference in order for rasa to be exchanged, because if everything is one, then the rasa cannot be tasted and experienced. So there must be a worshipper, there must be a worshipped, and there must be the process of worship. Then rasa can be produced. So in the transcendental spiritual world, where Sri Krishna Bhagavan exists in his highest display of rasa, his entire realm is completely saturated with the highest exchanges of rasa, and everyone there is swimming in this ocean of rasa. That's why Srila Rupa Goswami wrote Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Sindhu means ocean. So that rasa amrita, that nectar, immortal nectar of rasa, is existing in this ocean. And Rupa Goswami is inviting everyone, come and drown in this ocean of rasa. Because everyone is drowning. Well, in the spiritual world, I mean. Everyone there is drowning in an ocean of rasa eternally. So, that ocean is described by Rupa Goswami. He is vividly describing what that ocean is constituted of, how it has different sides, different types of waves. So now, in that land, Sri Krishna's pastime potency, namely Yogamaya. Yogamaya is also his supreme energy, his supreme Shakti. So that particular division of his energy manifests and controls everything that happens in the spiritual world and also in the material world. Everything that exists, everything that manifests. That potency is non-different than Sri Krishna, because it is an emanation of his Swarup Shakti. So we should try to understand this particular point, that Swarupa, Swarup, means one's own rupa, one's own form. So Krishna's Swarup is his very own self and his Shakti, Swarup Shakti. So therefore the Swarup Shakti serves Sri Krishna's desire. Krishna desires to taste rasa, and his Swarup Shakti fulfills that desire. So therefore the entire realm where he is eternally living and sporting, playing his leelas, his pastimes, that realm facilitates his tasting of rasa in all different varieties. So that Yogamaya potency manifests the transcendental realm and all the different personalities there. That's Swarup Shakti potency. And who is that Swarup Shakti potency? The person who is the very embodiment of that power. That is Srimati Radha Thakurani. The feminine form of the Supreme Absolute Truth. The predominated moiety. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati used this term. Predominating moiety. Moiety means one entity. But that entity has two sides. Predominator, predominated. Vishay Bhagavan, Ashray Bhagavan. Therefore, in every manifestation of Bhagavan's pastimes, his expansions, his manifestations of worlds and planets, there are these two different opposites. Predominator, predominated, which manifest in all species of life also. Male, female. Predominator, predominated, because it is there in the Absolute. But that position, that positioning of predominator and predominated is there by tattva, by the tattva vichar. But by rasa vichar, he who is the predominator, he becomes fully predominated. Their positions become reversed. He becomes predominated. But how does he become predominated? Only one method. Praying. He becomes subordinate to praying. He becomes fully conquered and fully controlled by praying. And that is what he desires. He desires to taste this ras. So therefore the supreme predominator becomes totally predominated. And how does that happen? Because Srimati Radharani, who is his full, complete Shakti potency, she manifests unlimited varieties of different personalities who can supply Krishna with his unlimited ras, nectar of ras that he tastes unlimitedly. So that begins, that unfolding of rasa begins when Srimati Radhika, her very own self, her very body, becomes 8. She expands into 8. Each one of those 8 are herself, her very own self. And they manifest particular qualities that are within her. But they're specific individual personalities. And each one of them has different temperament, different personality, like that. Just as we see in Krishna's creation, there are no two persons that are completely identical and alike. You may find occasionally there are identical twins, but if you analyze their personalities, they're always quite different. Their desires are different, all are individual. Their fingerprints are different also. Many parts of their biological bodies, they're different. So, Srimati Radhika begins in the highest rasa of Madhurya rasa, in the exchange of conjugal loving affection. She manifests herself to supply Krishna with all these different varieties of personalities. And there is expanded millions and billions of Sakhis, transcendental cowherd girls, who are so highly qualified in every single way, who are so full of loving affection for Krishna in their own unique ways. So each one of them attracts Krishna and enthralls Krishna. But even if all of them are present, and Srimati Radhika is not present there, then Sri Krishna feels that something is missing, something very significant. He cannot feel the exuberant expanding of rasa. So that was exhibited in the manifestation of Sri Krishna's Vasanti Ras, springtime rasa dance in Vrindavan, when Srimati Radhika, in Govardhan rather, and when Srimati Radhika, she left the rasa dance. And then Krishna became mad. He became so much overwhelmed in separation mood from Radha, that even though millions of gopis were there, Shatakoti gopi, that means billions, Shatakoti, hundreds of millions. That's how many were there. Sometimes people ask, how is that possible? Because physically, that's a relatively small area comprising only a few miles. We in fact can go there and we can circumambulate. Where is there the space for billions of gopis? And how do they live in Vrindavan, in a small little village? But guess what? You're trying to use your tiny little material brain to understand Ananta. Ananta means without any end, without any limit. Everything spiritual is Ananta. And it is also Achintya, inconceivable. So the realm of Braja Vrindavan that was transposed onto the material plane, it may appear to be 160 so square miles, but it is actually, is it actually such a limited space and geographic area? Is that the actual Dham? No. Only externally it appears that way. But the Dham is millions and millions of miles. Navadvip Dham is also non-different than Sri Vrindavan Dham. And Navadvip Dham is never destroyed when the material dissolution comes at the end of Lord Brahma's day. It is always there, Navadvip Dham, because it is non-different than Vrindavan Dham. It has come from the same eternal spiritual abode of Sri Krishna. So, once there was a Markandeya Rishi who had a benediction. He's one of the universal sages. And he had a benediction that he could continue to live for, I think it was 7 kalpas. What is a kalpa? Kalpa is a day of Brahma, his 12 hours, and his night. That's called a kalpa. So he has 12 hours of his day, 12 hours of his night, and his day, okay, is 4,320,000,000. We were talking the other day about the, what did you call it?
Fibonacci sequence.
Fibonacci sequence. I'm going to study that. That's very fascinating. 432. It's there everywhere in nature. Okay? So 432,000 years. 432,000 years is the length of time of our present era, this Kali Yuga. We're only 5,000 years into it. 432,000. We've got another 427,000 to go. So if anybody puts something up on internet that the world is supposed to end, the Mayan calendar said such and such, tell them to sit down.
Don't sell all your stuff.
Yeah.
Actually, that's a wrong interpretation of Mayan calendar, but anyway.
And now they're also making movies about the Ark, Noah's Ark,
Yeah.
right? And that there's supposed to be a big flood, and there were floods before, right? But we happen to know when the next flood is coming. And guess how long it will be?
427,000 years?
No,
End of the day of Brahma.
No, it's going to be
no. 432,000 is only one yuga, Kali Yuga, the shortest one.
Oh.
And then the one previous to this one, Dwapara Yuga, is twice the length. There are mathematical figures here. Twice the length of Kali Yuga. Okay? Then the Treta Yuga before that is 3 times the length. And then the Satya Yuga, the longest, is 4 times. So this is the mathematical breakdown. That means 10, the decimal system. Here's where the decimal system comes from. 10, the number 10. Because why? Because this sequence is 10 times 432,000. 432,000 times 10 is what? Times 10. 432,000. 4,320,000. That is the duration of one yuga cycle. 4 yugas. Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, Kali Yuga. It is the duration of one yuga cycle. Okay? 4,320,000 years. Okay? Fibonacci system. Then 1,000 times that. Okay? Decimal system again. 1,000 times that is 4 billion. 320 million. That's the 12 hours of Lord Brahma's day in which he is engaged in creation. And so many incarnations of the Lord come within that 12-hour period of Lord Brahma. They come into the universe like waves. And they manifest their pastimes on various planets throughout the universe. So when Lord Brahma, who is the first created being, and his entire duration of his life is the duration of our universe. That's interesting to know, because the universe is based upon how long the first created being lives. And when his duration of life is finished, the universe is finished. So we know that Lord Brahma lives for 100 years. And in that 100 years, there are 12 months. In the 12 months, there are 30 days. Okay? And then each day is 4,320,000,000, and each night is 4,320,000,000. So you have day and night, 8,640,000,000. That's the 24-hour period, 8,640,000,000. So Lord Brahma is going to sleep at night, and when he goes to sleep at night, the lower planetary systems become flooded. A manifestation of water comes. So that water manifestation is going to come only after, what? 4,320,000,000. Okay? And we are in Lord Brahma's day with 1,000 yuga cycles. And we're in the Kali Yuga, in Lord Brahma's day. I know that in his life, he's in middle life right now. He's in midlife. And in this day, did anyone hear? How far into this day?
27th Yuga.
27th.
Manvantara.
27th Manvantar.
No,
No,
there's
no.
only 14
28.
Manvantars.
14 Manvantars.
28th millennium?
The 28th millennium.
But this is the 7th Manvantar, is it?
Yeah, 5 and Svata.
Right, and there's
14.
14. So he's also midway.
Midlife crisis.
Okay, so midway. But it's interesting because, guess what? Sri Krishna, Bhagavan, only comes once in a day of Brahma into the universe. His incarnations and his expansions, they come numerous times. But he himself only comes once in a day of Brahma. So it's interesting because, just like in Bhagavad Gita, everything's in the middle of the Gita. The most confidential knowledge is in the middle, the very middle of the Bhagavad Gita. Similarly, in the middle of Brahma's day, Krishna comes. And he comes on schedule. 8th Manu. It says 8th Manu in Srimad Bhagavatam. Yes, 8th Manu. So, why are we telling all this? Because Markandeya Rishi had a benediction that he would not have to die for 7 days of Brahma. That means 7 kalpas. It's called a kalpa, day of Brahma. So that means that he's, regardless of the flood or whatever, he's not going to die. He can't die. So Markandeya Rishi was caught being thrown about in the waves of the dissolution. Just himself, not with a ship, nothing. Just being thrown about in the waves of the dissolution. And then what? He started to regret, oh, why did I accept this benediction that I can't die? And he was very, very distraught. This is described in Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Navadvip Dham Mahatmya, where he reveals the glories of Navadvip Dham, and he reveals all the different, past amazing occurrences in each one of the 9 islands of Navadvip Dham. Historical occurrences, even yugas and yugas and yugas ago. Like Lord Ram coming there, like the Pandavas coming to Navadvip Dham. And so many amazing things in Navadvip occurred. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur revealed these. Mahaprabhu manifested these in his heart, and he revealed. And he told the story. Because why? Nityananda Prabhu himself, who is the supreme guru, the origin of all Guru Tattva, he took Sri Jiva Goswami when he was young. He took him personally, walking on foot all around the 9 islands of Navadvip, and he pointed out all these different places and what occurred there. in previous yugas. So Navadvip Dham. In this particular manifestation, Markandeya Rishi was floating and floating, and all was dark. But in the distance he saw some kind of effulgence. And then gradually, he practically was fainting, and then he somehow or other washed up on the shore. And there was a transcendental cow named Surabhi Devi. And this cow is the same cow that Lord Indra, 5,000 years before, or when Sri Krishna appeared, that Lord Indra, he wanted to apologize to Krishna for trying to destroy Vrindavan and all the Brijvasis. So he brought a very dear personality, namely Surabhi Devi, and she came in front of Indra so that Krishna's heart would be melted, because Krishna loves his Surabhi cows. They're his eternal devotees. So Surabhi Devi came. But after that incident, then Surabhi Devi was going back to the highest realm in this material universe, where she lives there in the Vaikuntha region, in the material universe. But she passed over Sri Navadvip Dham, and she understood, oh, this is the place of Gauranga Mahaprabhu. So she came down, and there was the particular island called Godruma. She resided there, and that's why it's called Godruma, because Go means cow and Druma means tree. And there was a huge banyan tree. And at that time, this banyan tree was like 10 miles. 10 miles, the banyan tree. So Surabhi Devi decided, okay, I'm going to pray to Gauranga Mahaprabhu, who's going to appear in this Navadvip Dham in the next Kali Yuga. So she took up residence there. So Markandeya Rishi, he was floating in these waters of devastation, and there was Surabhi Devi, saw him, and then she pulled him out and nourished him with her milk. And then when he came conscious again, she explained, oh, this is actually the transcendental realm of the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna, who will appear in the Kali Yuga as a golden avatar, Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu, and he will distribute prem, Braja prem, and all living entities will be completely overwhelmed in prem by chanting Harinam, the holy names of Krishna. And as she was describing to Markandeya Rishi, the Markandeya Rishi began to feel so enthralled, oh, if only I could see that beautiful form of Gauranga Mahaprabhu. And then Gauranga Mahaprabhu appeared, Sachinandan Gaur Hari, singing and dancing. And in this way, this pastime shows, when Markandeya Rishi saw this Navadvip Dham, it was when the other dissolution, everything was, but this place was not touched. In the same way, Sri Vrindavan is identical to Navadvip, and vice versa. So Sri Vrindavan Dham is an unlimited transcendental realm. With those who have the spiritual eyes, they can see this. So in this way, Sri Krishna, he was dancing with billions of gopis. Billions. But even though they were there, when Srimati Radhika left the rasa dance, then Krishna understood, oh, the exuberance of rasa has gone down. And then he left and searched everywhere for Srimati Radhika. And saying, oh, there's one song by Bhaktivinoda Thakur where he's describing how Sri Krishna was lamenting and calling out, Radhe, 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 please save my life, save my life. So in this way, Srimati Radhika is the embodiment of all prem. She is the embodiment of Mahabhav, prem for Sri Krishna. Her body is made of that. And therefore her expansions, they are also bodily expansions of her. They are also made of this prem. So amongst those 8, there are 2 that are very, very intimate There is Lalita Devi and Vishaka Devi. Amongst the 8, they are chief. So in Krishna's pastimes as Gauranga Mahaprabhu, when he descended into this world, then also his associates from Goloka Vrindavan, they also took on human-like forms within this world. And they also descended to assist him in his pastimes. And Ramananda Roy, who we are speaking about, he was of the 2 chief and most intimate assistants of Gauranga Mahaprabhu, who were Swarup Damodar Goswami and Ramananda Roy. And Swarup Damodar Goswami is none other than Lalita Devi. So those 2 intimate Kaya Vyuha expansions of Srimati Radhika, Lalita and Vishaka, they took these 2 forms of Ramananda Roy and Swarup Damodar Goswami. And when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in his final pastimes, you can hear the incredible description of Mahaprabhu's Antya-lila and how he was staying in this room, tiny room, Gambhira, which you can still go and see today in Jagannath Puri, and entering into the deepest moods of Vipralambha that Srimati Radhika was experiencing when Sri Krishna left Vrindavan. Krishna himself was tasting those moods in this Gambhira, and only 2 people could be there with him, all through the night. Day and night, Mahaprabhu was drowning in this ocean of separation mood, and also remembering, meeting, how Radha and Krishna would meet together, and in this way being inundated by the waves of the highest prem, Mahabhav prem. And only those 2 personalities would be with him. And how were they assisting him? Whatever he would be experiencing and feeling, they would sing various songs. Because these 2 persons were extremely erudite scholars, Sanskrit poets. They both wrote very great literatures, very great shlokas, and they were the most highly rasik personalities. So only they could be with Mahaprabhu because they fully understood his moods and what he was trying to taste. Because Sri Krishna is investigating. He's making an attempt to understand and taste and experience the prem of Srimati Radhika. But yet, that is a somewhat foreign area to him. He is not familiar with that area of Srimati Radhika's prem. So therefore, the most intimate associates of Srimati Radhika who understand all of her moods, they manifested in Gaur Lila, and they assisted Mahaprabhu day and night in tasting these moods. So, Sri Ramananda Roy, he was born not far from Jagannath Puri, very close to there, in one town. And later he became a government official in the government of the king of Orissa, which was Maharaj Prataparudra at that time. And he was posted in a place near to the Godavari river. And when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had taken sannyas and he wanted to go to South India on his first tour, going by foot and traveling to all the holy places in South India. So at that time Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who was the topmost scholar in Jagannath Puri and who had been converted completely from Mayavadism to pure Vaishnavism by Gauranga Mahaprabhu. That's a whole beautiful pastime in itself. So when he became converted, then he understood, oh, there is this one very exalted Vaishnava named Ramananda Roy. Previously, I could not appreciate him because I was under the spell of Mayavadism. But now I understand how exalted he is. And you, telling to Mahaprabhu, you should meet with him. it will be very beneficial for you to hear from him, because he has the highest realizations of all these divine topics. So, with that suggestion, Mahaprabhu, he left for South India, and he went to that very place on the banks of the Godavari, and by divine arrangement, Ramananda Roy came there, and because he was a royal personality in the government, he was very, very renowned in society, and he was coming to take a ceremonial bath in the sacred river, Godavari. And he was being carried on a palanquin, as great officials of the government would be carried, very honorably. And there were hundreds of Brahmins coming with him and chanting Vedic hymns. And there were also many other soldiers and so forth. So with this, so Mahaprabhu was sitting on the bank of the Godavari, and he was completely absorbed in his transcendental remembrance of Shri Krishna, in the mood of Srimati Radhika. And at that time, this great procession came. And just a short distance away from him, Ramananda Roy came off the palanquin, and they were beginning all the rituals, and there was going to be like a big celebration. And then Ramananda Roy, he looked over and he saw this effulgent sannyasi sitting on the banks of the Godavari. And immediately he was attracted. And Mahaprabhu, he also saw this person, but Mahaprabhu understood who he was. And he was also immediately attracted. So Mahaprabhu simply sat there, and at that time Ramananda Roy wanted to approach. So he went over and very respectfully bowed down to this sannyasi. And then he introduced himself. I am Roy Ramananda. And then both of them, they became so overwhelmed by seeing one another. Immediately they embraced. And all their bodies became completely filled with ecstatic symptoms on their bodies, overwhelmed in praying. And practically they fainted, but they continued to keep their consciousness because they understood that many persons were watching who would not be able to understand this exchange. So then they sat down, and Mahaprabhu began to speak to Ramananda Roy. And Mahaprabhu explained that Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya has suggested that I should meet with you. So I'm coming here specifically to meet with you. And you know, the Brahmins who were watching, they were completely astonished, because Ramananda Roy was actually in the Shudra category in Vedic Varnashram. Although he was a highly posted official in the government, but he was a kayashta, like a government clerk, and that was considered a Shudra position. So Ramananda Roy, being a Shudra in the fourth category in Varnashram, generally sannyasis in the Vedic system would never embrace a Shudra. But the Brahmins were astonished. And in fact, when they saw this exchange, and even the others, they also became overwhelmed in their emotions, became so overwhelmed just in seeing this golden sannyasi. And so, therefore, Ramananda Roy said, I want to come and meet with you without all of these persons here. So they made an agreement that they would come together and they would meet together more privately. So in that way, the next day, Mahaprabhu was waiting there, And Ramananda Roy came with only a few people in simple dress. And then Mahaprabhu and Ramananda Roy sat down together. And Mahaprabhu began to inquire from Ramananda Roy. But Ramananda Roy understood, who is this personality? He understood, he's Sri Krishna himself. And how can I become be the person answering the questions of this sannyasi? He knows everything. In fact, he's the source of all knowledge. So how can I dare to speak to him? But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very eager, because he understood that Ramananda Roy, he had something more. There was something special in him that Mahaprabhu required to hear. So Sri Kaviraj Goswami, in the beginning of that chapter, he has written one shloka, and in that shloka he's explaining that just like a cloud takes water from where? The ocean. But also, the cloud, when it rains, it also rains the water back down on the ocean. So, but when that rain is coming at a specific constellation, when there's a particular constellation, in the astrological literature is called Swati Nakshatra. And that particular constellation causes, when the raindrops touch the ocean, it causes certain things to happen, such as pearls to manifest inside of the oysters by the Swati Nakshatra. Also there are other things that happen, like when it hits the hump of a cow, then gorochan, a golden substance comes from the hoofs of the cow. Gorochan. Also when it hits the banana tree, camphor is produced. You see. So in this way, Swati Nakshatra means that, yes, the rain was coming, the water was coming from the ocean to the cloud, and the cloud rained it down again onto the ocean, but there was a particular constellation, so therefore the ocean was also, something in the ocean was also transformed. So Kaviraj Goswami is saying that Mahaprabhu is like the ocean, Ramananda Roy is like the cloud. And the cloud is receiving from the ocean, but yet when the cloud rains down on the ocean, then this special thing is produced. So in the same way, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna, and Krishna does not know all of the intimate details of prem, the exchanges of prem, as Srimati Radhika, her moods, the moods of the Sakhis, the moods of the Gopis, the moods of Srimati Radhika herself. But Ramananda Roy, being none other than Vishaka Devi herself, Ramananda Roy knows everything. So Mahaprabhu wanted to hear from Ramananda Roy. But Ramananda Roy was somewhat shy. But how can I, a member of the fourth caste, Shudra, that I can speak these things to you? And Mahaprabhu said, no, don't be shy. You know everything. I want to hear from you. Please tell me, what is the ultimate goal of life? I want to understand, what is the sadhya? Because Mahaprabhu has his goal. Why did Krishna come? He has a goal. He wants to attain full comprehension and experience the prem of Srimati Radhika in 3 different ways. Her greatness of her prem, pranaya mahima. Swadyo yenad bhuta madhurima, the sweetness that she experiences in Sri Krishna by her prem. Sokyam chasya manda anubhavata, and the happiness that she tastes through her prem, the highest ecstasy. These 3 categories Sri Krishna wanted to understand. So, as Mahaprabhu, he has now come in a golden form, who is completely merged with Srimati Radhika. That's why his color is golden. Srimati Radhika's prem is covering him, but it's still, he has to go deeply into that. Therefore, Lalita and Vishaka came to assist. And that samvad means that transcendental conversation between Ramananda Roy and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it progresses stage by stage by stage up to the very highest. That Chaitanya Mahaprabhu never heard these things before. Ramananda Roy told that no one has ever inquired this far before. And so in that way, Ramananda Roy's Samvad is the pinnacle of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. And so much can be gained. Therefore our Gurudev, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj, on a number of occasions, during parikramas in Jagannath Puri, during parikramas in Sri Vrindavan, Braj Mandala parikramas, he chose this topic and expanded into this topic for the benefit of all the Vaishnavas. Our Srila Prabhupada, Bhaktivedanta Swami, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, he wrote the book in the beginning of the Krishna consciousness movement in the Western world. He wrote the book called The Teachings of Lord Chaitanya. And in that book, he actually introduced this conversation directly from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. He summarized it, but he gave very specific information there in that book, Ramananda Roy Samvad. It is one of the 5 conversations that Srila Prabhupada included in that book, which are called the Teachings of Lord Chaitanya. So if someone wants to know what is Mahaprabhu's philosophy, they should read the book called The Teachings of Lord Chaitanya. And then they will get a very clear understanding. Then after that they can read Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita and read all the full details, you see. So that Ramananda Roy Samvad is the jewel, the crest jewel of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. And Ramananda Roy, after having this extensive conversation with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then Mahaprabhu said, I cannot live without you. You must come and live with me always. And when Mahaprabhu went traveling to South India and he returned to Jagannath Puri within 2 to 3 years, then Ramananda Roy retired from his government position and Maharaj Prataparudra gave him full pension. And now he came to Jagannath Puri and lived there with Mahaprabhu until his disappearance from this world. So that these personalities, when we meditate upon them and we try to understand how these personalities assisted the pastimes of the Lord, how important they are, how prominent they are, then our bhakti becomes so much benefited and enhanced. So if we wanted to discuss Ramananda Roy Samvad, it would take a few weeks, actually, to go step by step through that progression. But the main topic was 2 things. What is the goal, sadhya, and what is the process of attaining the goal, called sadhana. Sadhya and sadhana. So sadhana means the method, the process, what you will have to do. And sadhya means the attainment, the goal. So in our Gurudev's preaching throughout the world, he would often say that first, it is necessary that you should fix what your goal is. That is essential. Because without knowing where you want to go, then you cannot ascertain what is the process of achieving that goal. That is even there in the material world. You want to become a doctor? Oh, then you have to enroll in a university, you have to take such and such courses, you have to go through medical college, and etc. Then you have to become an apprentice, and then one day you can become a medical doctor. So any great endeavor, it has a final goal that you're trying to attain, you see. So what is the ultimate goal? See, the Srila Prabhupada also, before he came to the West, it's interesting, he actually wrote a separate book. And he titled it, in English, In Search of the Ultimate Goal of Life. That's the title. And what was it? Exactly this conversation of Ramananda Roy and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And it was found, the manuscript, which was not printed, was found in his Radha Damodar temple. I think it was Nishringa Maharaj or someone else that found it. And then he said, wow, we have to print this. This was years after Prabhupada departed from this world. It came into his hand, and they printed a very nice version of that book. So Srila Prabhupada, before he even came to the West, he had written in detail what is this conversation of Ramananda Roy. So, in search of the ultimate goal of life, it also is relevant for us. Because Mahaprabhu, by his inquiries, and Ramananda Roy, by his answers, they gradually came from the most basic goals and progressing further and further and further. This is what the conversation is. Ramananda Roy, when he was asked this question, then first of all, he quoted, because Mahaprabhu asked him, I want to Shastra Nirnoy. I want that you will quote from Shastra and tell me how I can understand what is the ultimate goal of life. So in the beginning, Ramananda Roy, he started out by telling that Varnashram Acharadavata Purushena Purak Puman Vishnur Aradyate Panta Nanyat Tattosha Karanam. That means, from this Vishnu Purana, that only by following the duties of Varnashram Dharma, the 4 orders of social life and the 4 divisions of spiritual life, only by following that can one worship Vishnu. And besides this, there is no other way to please Lord Vishnu. Nanyat tattosha karanam. So, when Mahaprabhu heard this suggestion, then he said, this is external. This is actually external. I wish that you will speak further. Speak further. Go further. And in this way, step by step, Ramananda Roy began to suggest that, one should do Krishna Karmarpana. One should do whatever you're doing, you should do for Krishna. And he quoted from Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna tells, Yat karoshi, yat ashnashi, yat juhoshi, dadasi yat tapasyasi konteya, tat kurushva madarpanam. Whatever you do as an offering for me. Whatever you eat, you should do as an offering for me. Yat karoshi, yat ashnashi, yat juhosi. Whatever worship you perform, you should worship for me. Yat juhosi dadasi yat. Whatever charity you give, you should give charity for me. Yat tapasyasi. Whatever tapasyas and austerities, you should do for me. So Sri Krishna Bhagavan is telling this to Arjuna in the middle section of Bhagavad Gita and describing this is bhakti. This is how you can attain me. But yet, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard the suggestion, he said, Eho bahya age koho ar. That means this is external. Please speak further. Go further. So he kept on prodding Ramananda Roy, go further, go further. So step by step by step, he finally came to Jnane prayasam udipasya namanta eva jivanti sanmukaritam bhavadiya vartam stane stita shrutigatam tanavan manobir ye prayaso jita jitopyasi taistri lokyam. This verse is spoken by Lord Brahma, 14th chapter, 10th canto. Lord Brahma was telling to Sri Krishna, after he had attempted to steal Krishna's calves and cowherd boys. But Krishna defeated him by expanding his very self as all the calves and cowherd boys for 1 year, which was only, what? A moment of Brahma's time. We already figured that out. Moment of Brahma's time was 1 year. But he did a boo-boo, and he understood it. I have to go and apologize to Krishna now. And there he offered Brahma Stuti, that's called the prayers of Brahma. And this particular prayer, he's quoting this verse, Jnane prayasam udapasya namantai. He said, oh, my dear Lord, if someone actually wants to understand you, they have to give up fully their attempt to understand you through intellect, through jnana, because you are far, far, far beyond millions and millions of worlds away you are from being able to exercise your tiny little puny intelligence of your material brain. So therefore, jnane prayasam udapasya namanta eva. One should give up this attempt and surrender to Krishna. Namanta eva. And jivanti san mukaritam bhavadiyavartam. One should live in the association of pure Vaishnavas, san mukaritam, what is coming from their lotus mouth. That nectar flowing from their lotus mouth, one has to hear this. Stane stita. One should remain always in this situation of hearing. Shutikatam tanavan manobir. And also utilizing one's tanu, body, van, words, mana, mind. If someone does like this, jivanti sanmukaritam bhavadiyavartan, then ye prayaso jita ajitopi taistri lokyam. Bhagavan Sri Krishna himself, who is called Ajita, he's unconquerable. He's the supreme. No one can conquer him. It's impossible to conquer over Sri Krishna. Even Lord Brahma tried, but failed. So he says, you, O Sri Krishna, who are Ajita, cannot ever be conquered, but you actually become Jita, conquered, by this process of the devotee hearing your glories from the pure Vaishnavas and staying in that situation. Gradually they will attain prem, and only prem can conquer you. So when Mahaprabhu heard that suggestion, then at that point in their conversation there was a turn. He said, yes, this is very good. Now develop this more. And then Ramananda Roy quoted 2 verses. One was pertaining to Vaidhi Bhakti, regulated Bhakti. And the other was pertaining to Raga Nuga Bhakti. And he quoted, Ramananda Roy quoted the verse, Krishna Bhakti Rasa, Bhavita Mati, Kriyatam Api Kutopi Labhyate, Tatra Lolyam Api Mulyam Ekalam, Janma Koti Sukritayar Nalabhyate. What is that? This verse, it is the basis of Srila Prabhupada's preaching mission. When Srila Prabhupada came to give the message of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to the whole world, and he gave his name, the name for his institution, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So the term Krishna Consciousness came from this verse. Yes, Prabhupada explained that in a lecture. I have chosen this name Krishna Consciousness based upon this verse of Ramananda Roy. And he says there, what? Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavita Mati. So when you say Krishna Consciousness, these words in Sanskrit can be broken down to only these 2 English words, Krishna, consciousness. But what is consciousness of Krishna? It is called Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavita Mati. Mati means consciousness, intelligence, mati. And bhavita means transcendental moods. Of what? Krishna Bhakti Rasa. The rasa, the tasting, the experience of tasting Bhakti Rasa by performing bhakti to Sri Krishna. Sri Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavita Mati. That very first line is called Krishna consciousness. So, Krishna consciousness means that when you become conscious of Krishna, then you become fully conscious of His name, His transcendental name, Nam. You become fully conscious of His transcendental form, His Rupa, Nam Rupa. You become fully conscious of Guna, all of His 64 transcendental qualities. You become fully conscious of Leela, how Krishna performs His transcendental loving pastimes with all of His associates. And you yourself become advanced in your deep, deep attachment to Sri Krishna. And by that attachment and that taste for relishing the transcendental nectar of Krishna's Harikatha, then what comes gradually is asakti, deep attachment for Krishna. And when that asakti arises in the heart, then what occurs? Oh, now the devotee begins to relish and taste bhakti rasa. That bhakti rasa also reveals fully the devotee's eternal spiritual form, his own swarup, that is called siddha swarup, swarup siddhi, perfection of attaining your own transcendental spiritual body. To be able to perceive that is called swarup siddhi. And that attainment is done after progressing on the pathway of bhakti from the stages of vaidhi sadhana bhakti, then gradually attaining nishta, and gradually attaining some specific mood, which is called lobha. Lobha means greed. In this verse that Ramananda Roy is quoting to Mahaprabhu, he is telling very clearly there that without lobha, or lolya, means also greed, no one can relish and taste Krishna Bhakti Rasa, Bhavitamati. It is not attainable. How does he say that? He says, Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavitamati Kriyatam api kutopi labhyate. He says, if it's available, this Krishna consciousness, if it's available, you should immediately at once try to obtain that. Try to obtain that. Tatra lolyam api mulyam ekalam. There's only one way to attain that. It is called lolyam. Intense longing, intense greed to attain that. And how do you get this lolyam? Janmakoti. Even if you have sukriti, pious activities, from millions of janmas, millions of births in this world, millions of lives, janmakoti sukritayar, nalabhyate. That alone cannot give you. That alone cannot give you access. Only one way. Api mulyam ekalam. Lolyam. Greed to have it. So, that verse was very much appreciated by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That was the turn in the entire discussion. And then Mahaprabhu wanted to start hearing about praying. Because without becoming qualified to experience Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavitamati, without becoming fully Krishna conscious, no one can enter into praying. No one can understand the topics of praying. So at that point, the discussion turned. And then the entire remainder of that discussion with Gauranga Mahaprabhu was pertaining to all the different levels of praying, beginning with Shanta Ras, neutrality, Dasya Ras, servitude, Sakya Ras, friendship, Vatsalya Ras, parental, and Madhurya Ras, conjugal love. And then in conjugal love, what is the nature of that? And who are the supreme topmost? And he led one to the other. And finally to Srimati Radhika and the gopis. And then he went into the realm of Srimati Radhika's glories and her greatness. That Ramananda Roy Samvad, you'll have to read how Srimati Radhika is glorified there. And how Mahaprabhu wanted to hear more and more and more and more. And at one point, when Ramananda Roy was speaking, then Mahaprabhu put his hand over his mouth. Because this cannot go any further in this world. So the inconceivable realm of Srimati Radhika's praying was revealed fully in that discussion of Ramananda Roy. And at the end of that discussion, what happened? Ramananda Roy was looking at Mahaprabhu. And then he suddenly saw something astonishing. So astonishing that he actually fainted completely. He just fainted and lost consciousness. And what was that? First he was looking and he saw this sannyasi. And then suddenly he saw Brajendra Nandan Sri Krishna himself playing on a flute. And then that form transformed into a golden personality. Golden kanchalika means like a doll, a golden figure. And at that time, Ramananda Roy actually saw how Sri Krishna had taken on the golden color of Srimati Radhika and her prem, and he completely lost consciousness and fainted. That is Ramananda Roy Samvad. So, we will have to study that for the rest of our lives. Every year, we should go over it again and again and again. We should try to understand, try to taste it. This is our sadhana. This Chaitanya Charitamrita. It is the pinnacle of all topics in Srimad Bhagavatam even. So, in that way, all of our Vaishnavacharyas, they are called Rupanugas because they are following Rupa Goswami. They are following his moods, his internal moods, because he is the most intimate servitor in Goloka Vrindavan, in his form as Sri Rupa Manjari, the most intimate Palya Dasi of Srimati Radhika, and the leader of all of the very young Sakis and Gopis. So without following in the pathway of the Gopis, Ramananda Roy told clearly, without anugatya of the Gopis, no one can enter into that realm. To exchange with Sri Krishna in the realm of Madhurya Rasa in the camp of Srimati Radhika. So he revealed there that only by following in the mood of the Gopis can one attain that. So all of our Vaishnavacharyas, especially beginning with Sri Raghunath Das Goswami, they are the followers of Rupa Goswami. They are called Rupanuga. And our Gurudev has very elaborately explained the difference between Raganuga Bhakti and Rupanuga Bhakti. That someone can be Raganuga, but not Rupanuga. And what does it mean to be Rupanuga? That is a very deep topic. We will learn about that when we study this Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu Bindu, right? Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur will be discussing that topic, Raganuga. What is Rupanuga? So, in this way, we spent this period of time discussing a tiny little reflection of the glories of Sri Ramananda Roy. There's more to tell, but time has come to the end. So, I'm offering my unlimited Dandavat Pranams at the lotus feet of my Gurudev, my Guru Parampara, and all of the associates of Mahaprabhu, very chief of whom our Sri Ramananda Roy, Sri Sarup Damodar Goswami, begging for a drop of their mercy, that on this day we can bow our heads and try to comprehend some little tiny particle of their glories and their contribution to the Leela of Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Rao, Sri Sachinandana Gaura Hari Ki Jai, Sri Ramananda Roy Ki Jai, Sri Vishaka Avatar Ramananda Roy Ki Jai, Jai Sri Ramananda Roy Samvada Ki Jai, Sri Chaitanya Charitamritam Ki Jai, Samveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande Vancha Kalpatarubhascha Kripasinudhayascha Patitanam Bhagavato
You haven't made the offers yet. I don't
It's
know.
okay, we'll do kirtan.
Huh?
Doing kirtan is a
Hare Krishna.